Hello and welcome to the Consulting Specifying Engineer webcast, State of the Industry, Power Design Research Results, sponsored by ABB. I'm your moderator, Amara Razgis, and I'm happy to join you on behalf of Consulting Specifying Engineer and CFE Media and Technology. Well, let's learn how to use this interface for today's webcast. If you're experiencing any issues with your slides or the audio, refresh your browser or click on the Refresh Media button directly under the presenter's headshot. You can control the volume of this webcast by controlling the volume on your own computer or by adjusting it on the webcast platform. If you're having any technical problems with the audio or with the slide presentation, please click on the question mark at the top right corner of your screen to get a list of system checks to try before you contact an online technician. If you do need an online technician, type a message in the Ask a Question box and someone will get to you as quickly as possible. Individual questions will be answered in the Answered Questions box. Type questions for our speaker in the Ask a Question box on the left side of your screen. The live Q&A session will begin in about 40 or 45 minutes. Today's webcast is being recorded and you'll receive an email in about a week with a link to the on-demand event if there's something you want to come back to. To download a certificate of completion and a PDF copy of the presentation, use the Event Resources tab on the left side of your screen. These documents will also be available with the on-demand version of this webcast. All right, well, I'm excited to work with our presenter today, Lisa Bagwell. Lisa Bagwell is Director of Field Application Engineering, North America for ABB's electrification business, and she's based in Cary, North Carolina. She leads a large team of engineers that work with consultants and specifying engineers to provide expertise with the design and building of innovative electrical systems for their clients. Lisa is an active supporter of science, technology, engineering, and math programs. She's participated as a panel speaker for Northern Arizona University College of Engineering, Informatics, and Applied Sciences, and is a yearly judge during their undergraduate research symposium. During her more than 30-year career in the industry, she has served in a variety of engineering services, marketing, product management, and sales roles of increasing responsibility with GE and now with ABB. During Lisa's tenure, she has been involved in the National Electrical Manufacturers Association and was a GE representative in several committees. She's also a member of IEEE and the Society of Women Engineers. In addition to her full-time engineering leadership role, Lisa makes time to support STEM activities by supporting various events and mentoring women in engineering. She's a director on the NAU Foundation Board, as well as serving on the College of Engineering, Informatics, and Applied Sciences Dean's Advisory Board. She's on ABB's Encompass Women's Board of Directors, supporting inclusion, equality, and diversity. Lisa will be discussing some terrific research that's about to be released on the electrical and power markets. It's great to be here today with you, Lisa. You're live now.
Thank you so much, Amara. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today and talk about the output from the recent survey that was conducted a few months ago. So before I get started into the output, I really want to take a minute just to go through a quick safety moment. You know, a lot of us are either coming back to work or still working from home, but it seems like most of our interactions are still on the computer or on virtual meetings. So like today on the webinar. So I just wanted to point out a couple of tips for each of the audience today. First of it is when you're in front of the computer all day, a lot of times you can get engrossed in what you're doing and forget to actually get up, take a moment to stretch, move around. It's really important that you don't stay seated all day long without having a little bit of activity. The second part is your eyes. Make sure that you take a moment to look away from the screen. There's the old 20-20-20 rule, which is every 20 minutes, take an object that's 20 feet away and look at it for 20 seconds. That gives you a chance to look away from the screen and gives your eyes a break. Also, from a desk standpoint, when the pandemic first hit and everybody had to go home, I know a lot of my colleagues and employees had to go sit at their kitchen counters or kitchen tables. So make sure that you've got a workspace that is conducive to your height, also being able to look directly into your screen. And you can also use standing desks. So they're fairly cheap. You can get them online, and it allows you to raise and lower your workspace, which also helps with the first tip about making sure that you move around. And then finally, just make sure you keep your workspace clean. I know I do a lot better when I have the ability to just have a notebook next to me and I can find the information that I need, as well as power cords. So if you're working from home, keep your power cords away from your children or your pets. Make sure that they're not chewing on them, and keep it tidy so that it doesn't create a tripping hazard for you or any children in the area. So I hope a couple of those are just good reminders and tips for all of you that are continuing to work from home and or at the office on a regular basis on video calls. So let's get into the actual presentation here. And, at ABB, we were really curious to understand from a customer's perspective, how work was changing and how, specifying habits might have changed over the last 12 to 18 months. So we partnered up with CSE and we did a research project. And for this particular project, what we did is we went out and conducted a survey with consulting engineers, specifying engineers, design engineers to really understand what was changing in the industry. Now, we aligned our survey to be consistent with a survey that was conducted about a year ago. And the purpose of that was so that we could see the delta or the difference or change in how activity was either increasing or decreasing. And by doing that, what that allowed us to do is if we saw any questions that had a 5-point differential, that is statistically significant. So I'm going to point out some of those areas to you as I go through the data that are statistically significant. And then in some areas, it quite frankly stayed the same. So I'll point those out to you as well. Now, this particular survey was conducted just a couple of months ago, so it's absolutely relevant and timely. So starting with some of the demographics, I'm going to go through the profile of the folks that actually took the original survey. And I'm also going to give you the opportunity to look and see how you might align with the survey participants. So how do you compare, or how does your business compare against what I'm going to be showing you? The data itself kind of directed us into 4 different areas or trends that I want to point out. And it's going to be around the project mix, some of the emerging technologies that are coming out, also future challenges that the participants saw, and then does smart technology play an impact today, or is it going to play an impact in the future? So we're going to go through all of those items. Now, let's start with some general findings. And what we saw was the majority of the participants were either supervisors or those that were determining the requirements or actually writing the specifications. Now, not too surprisingly, because the participants that were in the survey were specifying engineers, electrical engineers, design engineers, so that would make some sense. Also, what we saw is 75% of the participants specified electrical distribution systems. Now, out of the population, there was some questions around what's the most important factors when determining product selection or manufacturers. And what came out of that was product quality, service support, manufacturer's completeness of documentation. There was about half of the participants that noted an increase in renewable energy, and we're going to talk more about that as I get into the data. And then about 2/3 or so saw continued industry challenges around project budgets, having to do more with less, and then the real crunch on times and the time being allowed to deliver projects. So it was mainly a male population that was the participants in the survey, and the average industry experience was well over 25 years. So a very experienced population that participated in the study, as well as if you look at across the United States, you can see the map on the screen. Pretty good distribution in all the various regions. And we did have 4% participation coming out of Canada. Now, we asked two specific questions. One around your involvement in how you work with the product selections, and then one specifically around building structures. So when you look at the left side of the chart, that's the one on product selections. And what we found is that the majority determine the actual requirements and or write the specifications and work on understanding what the options are by doing some research for their particular project. When we looked at the building structures, the majority were around office buildings. So if this sounds like what you do on a regular basis, and or the profiles or demographics that I talked about earlier sound like you fit those demographics, then I really think that the data that we're going to go through today is going to be relatable to you and or your company. So when we talk about company, we also asked a question around the size of the company that the people were a part of that participated in the survey, as well as their annual design revenue or fees, and then what category did they collect those fees for. And when we talk about the company size, about 46% of the participants were in a company that had 100 people or more. So about half were in what I call a fairly large company. And from a design dollar standpoint, there was about a quarter that weren't really sure on what that design, well distributed across anywhere from a little bit less than $1 million all the way up to $20 million. So a nice distribution of participation. And then on the categories, the majority, 75% in total, around new construction as well as retrofit and renovation. So really nice cross-section, good sample size. So we feel like the data that was collected is statistically significant and pertinent to the industry. So let's start in and talk a little bit more about what is being specified, where it's happening, and how it's being applied today, since I've just gone through who participated. So the first question was around the types of projects. And this is a forward-looking question. So it's future-based, but the question was asked, what would increase or decrease? And I found this really interesting from an output standpoint, because what we see at the bottom of the chart is new construction. Yet, if you remember, I talked about the fact that if it had 5 points or more, that was statistically significant. New construction was at 30% just a year ago. It is now at 50%, which is a 20-point differential, statistically significant. From a retrofit renovation, at the top of the chart, you see that the value is 77%. It was 59 last year, so significantly increasing, and it was up 18 points. So all categories across the type of projects show an increase, but what's really important to know is that new construction, I think, is going to come back and has turned the corner from the pandemic. So we talked about the types, and now we're going to talk about the building types. And this is another interesting look, because you see at the top of the list, industrial, manufacturing facilities, and warehouses. And typically we would think that we would see office buildings. But here, seeing the manufacturing facilities and warehouses, it kind of gave us pause and you had to think about it a little bit, but that's what the participants were going to be seeing. And if you think about what we hear and see in the news, I mean, Amazon being a very large customer out there, I mean, they're doing a lot of building and retrofitting in their warehouses, their fulfillment centers. So that's a big area of increase. Also, from an EV standpoint, the EV market is up. I think the CAGR is around 28%. And a lot of automotive factories, which falls under the industrial segment, they're either expanding their existing factories or they're building new factories to allow for the EV construction for their automotives. And actually here at ABB, we are also participating in that segment, because over the last couple of years, we spent over $200 million on updating our manufacturing facilities and warehouses and systems. So we absolutely are also supporting that increase in growth. Office buildings actually came in at number 2, but I think we still have a lot of disruption going on in office buildings. So not everyone is coming back to work yet. Within the office building structure, we're seeing some hoteling. So what office buildings are doing is they're shrinking their footprint, and they're allowing their employees to come in, share desk space, just depending upon what days they're coming in. So I think there's still a lot of disruption going on in that particular category. At the bottom of the chart, you're going to see the hotel, motels, sports entertainments, convention center facilities. They were really, hit hard by the pandemic originally, and they're still struggling a little bit to come back, but they did start to come back. I saw some economic data at the beginning of the year where they were starting to come back. Then we ran into some of the variants, and they've slowed down a little bit again. But as we all are watching NFL or baseball or basketball, I think we're going to continue to see those come back into having more growth opportunity. So those were future looking type of questions around the building types and structure. And it doesn't matter whether it's a retrofit or a new construction. It doesn't matter if it's hospitality or if it's an office building or manufacturing. What we wanted to understand is what's being specified, what products are being specified today. And what we can see here at the top of the list is circuit breakers. And with every project, I'm sure we all know that from a equipment standpoint, you're going to need a circuit breaker, right, for your power system. So pretty evident that would be at the top of the list. And circuit breakers themselves actually have really transformed over the last decade. They're getting smarter and smarter from an equipment standpoint. As a matter of fact, at ABB, what we've done is we've transitioned from our old 1990s Spectra breakers, and we're updating into our new feature-rich T-Max XT and E-Max breakers into our equipment. So we're a good example of really trying to make sure that we're upgrading our circuit breakers. You know, just a little bit of history, circuit breakers, right, were invented by Thomas Edison almost 150 years ago. They started out with a very manual type tripping capability, but they did have a tripping capability. And now our circuit breakers, along with advanced trip units, have the capability to have communications, do auto throwover systems, as well as align with selectivity requirements and provide data for a lot of different system applications. So great to see those are still at the top of the list. What I'm going to point out is the middle of the chart, about halfway down, you're going to see meters and submeters, an increase over prior year. And that's something that we need to keep our eye on, even though it's not at the top. It's something that could be driven by the requirements of our owners, customers, users that need to gather more data and more information, whether that's to meet some ASHRAE codes or to get LEED certification. So there could be reasons around meters and submeters continuing to move up on the list. And then the last point I'll have you take a look at on this chart is renewable energy. And you can see it's down at the bottom of the chart. And the reason why I'm doing that is because that's what is told us is being spec'd today, is renewable energy at the bottom. But when we ask the question about what do you think that's going to be in the specifications in the near term, so 6 months or longer, what we saw was renewable energy, top the chart. And in this particular case, very statistically significant because it was up 7 points over prior year. So again, could be a lot of reasons why that's topping the chart, but we also want to keep our eye on and recognize the fact that that's an up and coming area to be aware of. The reasons why that could be happening is we might have some owners or users looking for some reduced footprint for greenhouse gas requirements. Also just might want to increase their ability to be more relevant in the industry right now. Quite frankly, the U.S. is number 1 in fossil fuels. We're like number 4 for renewable energy. So there's a lot of opportunity for growth, at least here in the U.S. The other one that I'll just point out for you here is the electrical generation, and that's about 3/4 the way down the chart. And it was also statistically significant because it was up 9 points over the previous year. So we asked 3 questions around where do you spend the majority of your time, your billable time, who has the most influence or impact over your particular designs, and then also do you spend time with vendors or manufacturers? So what came back was 35% of the participants spent time researching and or specifying their particular projects. And when we first saw that, we thought it would be a little bit higher than that. But when you think about all the things that happen in a company, right, you probably are also spending more time on internal meetings. If you've got your PE license, you're going through education to make sure you keep that up to date. You probably have some client meetings even after a project is started up. So there could be a lot of reasons why that's only at 35%. From a standpoint of who has the most impact, the owner, the client, right? They're paying the bill. That's who most of us are typically working for. So that makes perfect sense that that came to the top of the list. And then the last one, 43% said that they either frequently or always work with the manufacturer or vendor. And what I would tell you is here's an opportunity for all of you, because here you have the opportunity to work with the manufacturer or vendor who can help you. And like here at ABB, I have field application engineers across the US that have sample specs that you can utilize in your projects. As a matter of fact, we have an internal tool that allows you to provide some project-specific data, and we can get the specs even more project-specific for you. There's a lot of information around applications and product itself. So for those of you who really aren't working with your vendors or manufacturers, I would encourage you to work with them and gain some productivity. So now I want to run just a quick poll, and I'm going to encourage all of you to participate in the poll. So here's the question. In your design specification activity, what's the most important factor to your specification of electrical or power systems from these top 5 options? And what these options are product quality, manufacturer's completeness of product documentation, product safety features, service support, and lead and delivery time. And I'm really going to encourage all of you to please participate in the poll, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare with what's in today's live poll with what the participants said a few months ago. So I'm looking at the poll right now. It looks like we are getting some good input in, and so yeah, they're still coming in. So it looks like from today's poll, the distribution is very, very similar to what we saw in the actual output from the survey. So from today's poll, it basically tells me that product quality came in at 55%. So that was at the top of the list, just like product quality was the top of the list in our actual survey that we put out. So pretty consistent from what we saw a couple of months ago. Product quality showed at about 98% importance when we conducted the survey, and to me that's kind of a ticket to entry. So from a manufacturer or vendor standpoint, if we don't have product quality, it doesn't seem like there's going to be any opportunity to be put into a specification. Now, one thing that did show on the survey was that lead time was up statistically significant by 8 points over the prior year. And what I see in the actual live survey today is it's still one of the lower outputs, but maybe it was because when this survey was taken, there were some supply chain challenges or some other factors going on, but it seems like pretty consistent around product quality being the top of the chart. So then we asked some questions around recent changes. And, change is inevitable. It's going to happen. We've all experienced it over the last 12 to 18 months. But what's important to note is what is changing in designs. And again, what do we see at the top of the list? We see renewable systems. So renewable energies continue to get bumped up on the overall chart. Now, what we also did in this particular question, which wasn't in the question a year ago, is we asked about BIM, Building Information Modeling requirements. And it actually made the top 5. So that was kind of interesting for us to understand whether or not the specifying engineers out there were being challenged with BIM. Are you starting to see that more? And I would really love to hear in the Q&A portion of today's discussion if any of you have more requirements in the BIM area that you are seeing. So then we asked a question around technologies that are in demand. And what came to the top here is arc flash safety. Now, there isn't any statistical significance on this particular chart because arc flash safety wasn't asked in the original survey. But by putting it in, it kind of shows us that because it was at the top of the chart, that it is an important area and it continues to be a critical item. We all know arc flash has been around for several years. There's been a lot of seminars on it, a lot of discussions. There's conferences, you have the electrical safety workshop through the IEEE, a lot of discussions here, but it continues to be an area that is important. And I wanted to share that with all of you. Now, renewable energy storage, emergency standby power, that's all in the top 5. So we're kind of seeing a trend here about renewable energy that is continuing to take the top of the chart. So I would like to do another quick poll. And this poll is going to be around the percent of your projects that require smart technologies. So I really appreciate the participation in the last poll. You should be seeing it on your screen. And in this particular poll, you have the option to pick one of 5 areas. So the first one is less than 20%, 20% to 40%, 41 to 60, and 61 to 80. Now, smart technologies can be somewhat difficult to understand only because different people have different definitions of what a smart technology might be. It could be a smart meter that somebody's got on their design. Somebody else might interpret it as using the cloud to gather data or information. It could be analytics that you have on a project. Could be a lot of different definitions. But I'm looking at the responses from today's live audience, and it looks like kind of interesting. We're really kind of split down the middle. So I guess it's going to depend on your particular area of expertise. But it looks like about 27% of you are saying less than 20%. The biggest group that we have right now is the 41 to 60%. So that's significantly different than what we saw when we went through the survey. So let me share with you the survey results. What the survey results a couple of months ago told us was that there's really not a lot of activity going on in this particular area. Matter of fact, less than 25% of the market was smart projects. And our live poll today is showing us something a little bit more encouraging around smart projects. So this is an area that can be somewhat intimidating, I think, for many people. It can also be intimidating for owners or users because they don't really want to change their systems. They might not want to have their maintenance staff have to learn a new system. So there's a lot of reasons why people are adverse to smart or new technology. But it looks like from today's live poll that that's also continuing to change. So glad to see that. If any of you have a need for smart systems, certainly, like I said, I've got a lot of field application engineers across the country and in Canada that can support you with questions or support that you might need, working with and educating your end users or people on your staff at your firms. So here's a look at the challenges that the participants saw in the future. And the challenges, for the most part, I think are probably challenges not only in the future, but some that you're seeing today. And one of those is really around time. And we are asked to produce answers, produce completed projects quicker and faster. We have that time crunch, and our budgets are getting smaller and smaller. So just really trying to make sure that we're delivering a quality project on time and within budget always seems to be a challenge. But based on our survey respondents, it looks like it's become even more of a challenge. Now, the one area I do want to point out, because it was statistically significant, is the third item here on the chart, and it's really around pipeline. And it's not the pipeline of projects or opportunities, it's talent. It's the talent pipeline that we're not seeing out there. And part of that has to do with, I don't believe a lot of universities today have power engineering as one of their curriculums. You know, some universities have dropped that as a specific degree. They still have power requirements, but there's not a focus on it like there used to be. So it's really important from a recruiting and retaining standpoint, both from a manufacturer's company standpoint as well as for your firms. I know that some of the things that ABB is doing is we've got a program called LEAD, and we are working to take, young graduates into our organization and really help them understand the power industry, give them an opportunity to rotate around to different areas and functions, and help them to be more excited about being in the power industry. And also, you heard in my bio at the beginning around STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and math, working with school-age kids and helping them to see how much fun it can be in the power arena and in the engineering arena. So if any of you have opportunities to work in or with those types of areas, I hope that you go back and talk to your companies and see if you can't help with the whole recruitment and retaining engineers in this field. And then the last one that I'm going to update you on this particular page is the cybersecurity. And cybersecurity is an area that we also looked at from the fact that it is up and coming. And we added that into the survey this year, and it was on the top 5. So as we spend more time on computers, more time transacting electronically, both from a work and a personal standpoint, I think that is going to continue to be a challenge going forward. So let's step away from the survey for just a moment. And let's go to take a look at really what's happening from economic forecasts in 2022. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about or show you is some information that comes from Architecture Billings Index. And what this is this is a leading indicator. And on the left-hand side of the chart here that you see is the billings. So these are projects that the architects have already worked on, and anything over the number 50 is an indicator that it's growth and that it's a healthy economy. So you can see current and last month. This particular data was pulled from a current month of September. So this would be September, August timeframe. And the design contracts that you see there, that's the pipeline of opportunities that are coming in for the architects. So both areas showing in the 50s column. So both very strong economically and looks to be like a good growth opportunity going forward. Then we take a look at a little bit more of a lagging, what we call a lagging indicator. And this is the construction outlook. So construction forecast is made up of a lot of different inputs, and you can kind of see them all listed out on the screen. And from a forecast standpoint, they're saying in 2022, the percent change looks to be pretty healthy. So while not as robust as the ABI, still looks really, really healthy going forward. Then the next chart here is from NEMA. This is the electro industry, and this is on shipments. So what this chart is showing us is that anything to the left of the dotted line is a historical, or you see the H on the chart, that's a historical shipments. Anything to the right of the dotted line is future. So that would be from fourth quarter of 2021 through 2023. And the bars that you see are representing each quarter. So it's quarter over quarter change. Anything above the zero line is a positive change. Anything below would be a negative change. So the good thing is that we really see in 2021, it was fairly healthy. And going into 2022, 2023, all looks fairly strong from a shipment standpoint. Again, these are forecasts. These can be tempered by what's happening with supply chain concerns or challenges, but all indicators are showing us that we do have a healthy 2022 coming up. Now, if you take the opportunity, you can download the presentation from the webinar today. And what you can do is I've got all four sites here, the ABI index that I talked about on the first chart, the electro industry NEMA economic outlook. Now, you do have to be a NEMA member to access that particular link. But what ABB does is we pull together a summary called the vital signs, and that's also included here on the link. So even if you're not a NEMA member, you'll be able to pull down the information. And then also the consensus construction link is there. And then also added a link from Goodale from CSE. So make sure you take advantage, download the presentation, and you can utilize that economic data, whether it's for you individually or your company can use that. So let's summarize. Overall, it looks like we've got really good demand going into 2022. Also, from a emerging trend, we continue to see that renewable energy come to the top of the list, and arc flash is a continual item that is of concern and need for the specifications. Also, in industrial, warehouse, manufacturing, that was at the top of our list for future building types. Office space, I think, is going to continue to be at the top. Although, like I said, there's a lot of disruption going on there. It might have its ups and downs, but I think it's still going to be high on the list. And healthcare was actually third on the list as we went through the chart. But that's going to be tempered by just depending upon what happens with the pandemic and any of the variants that might come out, which allows really the hospitals to take more or less elective surgeries and turn that profit into changing their facilities. And then also future trends, cybersecurity, smart technologies. I really think those are going to be up and coming giving us a lot of opportunities. Again, the challenges there are making sure that we educate the owners and users and help them feel comfortable about using smarter technology. And then finally, all economic indicators are telling us the infrastructure bill is going to help fuel demand. So I hope all these areas were of help to you and interest, and really appreciate the participation in your live polls today, because that's also going to help us with additional data. So thank you for tuning in today. Appreciate it. And I'm going to turn it back over to Amara so that we can go through any questions that anyone in the audience has today.
Fantastic. So, thank you for making all of that so manageable to understand, Lisa. And now Lisa Bagwell from ABB will answer questions from the audience. Please type your question for the presenter in the Ask a Question box on your screen, and we'll get to as many questions as time allows. Questions that we do not get to verbally will be posted online at www.csemag.com with the archived version of this webcast. And remember to download a certificate of completion or a copy of this presentation. Use the Event Resources tab on your screen. All right, Lisa, we've got a few questions here. Let's get started.
Okay.
What do you think we're not, or I should say, why do you think we're not seeing a higher adoption rate of smart technologies? The number was surprising.
Yeah, it was surprising. It was surprising to us as well. So I think part of that is, again, just the comfort level that people have with smart technologies, or the uncomfort level that people have with smart technologies. I mean, I think the adoption rate there will continue as people get educated. I kind of like to think about it similar to the automotive industry. So if you think about it, and I'm going to age myself a little bit here, but when we had vehicles that had windows that you had to crank, right? You had to roll a window up and down. Today, I don't think any vehicles today are made with cranks on the windows. They're all electronic. And I think it's just an adoption rate and an education to help understand what the opportunities are. So I seriously would ask any of you out there that have interest in smart technologies to reach out to us. I'd be happy to set you up with my field application engineers or an expert on my team to help you understand it, or help your clients or owners understand it.
Cool, thank you. All right, next question. This kind of goes back to your summary, your overview. Lead times for products have been a real challenge in 2021. Do you expect that to improve in 2022?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I wish I had a crystal ball to be able to answer that. Definitely, but hey, all of us have had issues with lead times, whether it's personal or professional, just because of the whole supply chain issues. So hard to specifically answer that question, but what I can say is, we have spent a lot of money on expanding our manufacturing process to make sure that we've got enough room for demand, since there's been such high demand lately. So that's one thing that we're doing. Also, what I'd tell you is to make sure you plan, right? Be a little proactive. As an engineer, work with your client, work with your end user. Make sure that you've got a timeline that can be met, because there is going to be supply chain challenges going into 2022. I mean, we see it from an economic indicator and all the information that we have. So, like I said, I wish I had a crystal ball, but yeah, I think we're going to continue to see some of that. So just be proactive and plan is the best thing I can tell you.
Sure. Great tip, Lisa. Thank you. Let's see here. Moving on to the next question. How is a system design different for renewables or energy storage application than for more traditional electrical system designs?
Yeah, thank you for the question. That's a good one. You know, at the core of system designs, really, I think about the traditional electrification as more of load management, protection, control. And then when you think about renewables, I think about that more as a power generation type of architecture. So just depending upon the renewable that you're asking about, whether that's solar, you know, in solar, you're going to need to take the DC from the solar panels and convert that over to AC. So you need a DC to AC inverter. You're also going to need DC combiner boxes. You're going to need to make sure that you can take the output from the inverter to medium voltage to AC back to the grid. So, I mean, those are all things that you're not going to necessarily need in that traditional electrical design. And then if you're talking more about wind, you're going to have typically wind turbines. And in wind turbines, you're also going to need that low voltage, medium voltage step-up transformers, and probably a lot more controls than you would in a traditional electrical design. So yeah, there are, you know, specific differences between the two. And certainly, again, we've got some experts in that renewables area. If anybody has a need or requirements or would like more information on that, I'd be happy to get our experts to provide that. Just make sure you put your name and contact information into the Q&A, and I'm sure Amara can get that to me.
I sure will. Yeah. Thanks, Lisa.
Sure.
All right, here, next question. Looks like this is the last question that we have time for. Some of my clients are interested in smart electrical design, but very concerned and hesitant about cybersecurity vulnerabilities. What is the industry doing to address these concerns? Sure.
Yeah, the industry is actually kind of doing quite a few things. I would say to start off with, in today's environment, you know, no one is really immune to cybersecurity threats, no matter what kind of information technology devices you have in place or how advanced of information or blocking that you have within your company. I mean, there's always a good chance that there's going to be an opportunity for a cyber hacker to get into your system. So really the best thing to do and the best advice is rather than being reactive is to be proactive. And I know it gets a little frustrating for all of us. I know from my end, when you have to do the two-time authentication, or when you get emails that come in and they have a link, make sure that you're aware, right? And you're not just clicking on anything, because you can allow a hacker into your system or into your company without even knowing it. And then it spreads throughout your system. So the best thing to do is to make sure that everyone is active and don't leave it just up to your IT departments, but also be an active participant in that area. And then on a design standpoint, for those of you that are actually into like the SCADA designs, just make sure that you don't have a single point of failure. So within your SCADA designs, make sure they're not what we call flat, that you have a lot of different branches, and that way you don't have one single area that a really good hacker can go in and try to sabotage a particular system. There's a lot of, I know I get every week, matter of fact, I got one today. I get emails from cybersecurity experts about webinars and information. So that's another thing that the industry is doing. They're making sure that that there is education and there's preventative things that you can do at your company and or talk to your clients or your owners about.
Sure. Excellent information. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Sure.
All right. Well, that's it for those great questions. And thanks again to our great speaker, Lisa Bagwell from ABB, for sharing her time and expertise. And I'd also like to extend a special thank you to our sponsor, ABB, for supporting today's event. Now that we are wrapping up, we want to hear how we did. The exit survey will pop up on your screen as soon as this webcast ends. Please take a moment to complete it because we use this information to improve future events. Finally, on behalf of Consulting, Specifying Engineer, and CFE Media and Technology, I'd like to thank you for attending. This now concludes our webcast. Thank you and goodbye.